Chapter 6, the Location API and Parameters. So hey guys, so last time I left you, we were talking about how the window object had all these APIs that could help us. And I mysteriously left us off talking about how there were two things that we were able to access here, and they got split off from the path name. And those were the hash and the search. Now, what we're going to talk about today are different ways that we can use these APIs to manipulate what's going on the page, and we'll talk about why that works. Alright guys, so I just got a couple quick demos that are going to show how we can use various aspects of a location API to help us work with our project. So what we're seeing here is the same old server that we had, and then we've got these demos here. Just ignore the folders at the top. Those are just so the demos will work on my Astro website. Astro's really cool. But here we have the same page as before with a button and some divs, but now the button says click me to see your current path, just as the same as before, but the apps, we have 5 of them. And this one's the path name, and this is the search parameters. So our search parameters are going to be brie and cheddar, and our hash fragments are going to be Gouda and mozzarella. I like cheese. I just figured it'll be a good way for everybody to remember. I hate Nazis. I like cheese. That's what you've learned about me. And so from here, we have the URL. And what we're going to do is do a new URL. This is the URL API. And what it can do is help you parse any URL. We could just do window.location and everything would work from there. We could get everything from it. But I just wanted to show off how the URL API works and that you can use it to parse things and get these search params out of it, because the URL search params are really handy. And so from here, I show you how you can get certain search parameters if you put in the key here. And my keys are going to be brie and cheddar, remember, for the first 2 search parameters. And then these are going to be Gouda and mozzarella. And from here, I'm going to console log the URL that I made, and then I'm also going to console log the location.search, so you can see why I like the URL better. Because what we can do with the URL API is iterate through our search parameters very easily and take out each of the key and value pairs that we'll have there that the user is input for us to look through and figure out what we want to do with our app. And then also, if you want to skip making the URL like that, what you can do is actually just take the search parameters out. If that's all you're worried about, then you can just go straight to the location API, tell it that it has these search parameters, and then just make some search parameters out of it. It's super duper easy. And then from there, you can work from a key value pair of what you have in the URL there. So up here, if we have click me to see your current path, if we refresh, it's actually going to have, you gotta be kidding me. I forgot to start the node server. I forgot to start the node server, so we have to do that before we can do anything else. And then from there, if we click on the bare path name, we're going to have nothing here. And so we will have a path name, but everything else is going to be undefined. But what we can do is put some stuff in here, like, I like cheese. And from there, we could maybe have something like brie equals good and cheddar equals better, in my opinion. And then also Gouda and mozzarella exist. And then from there, if we go into our website, it's going to have all of these options that we can parse through and use on our website. We think that brie is good, we think that cheddar is better, and we acknowledge that Gouda and mozzarella exist. And then from there, we, as you remember, we console logged. First, we console logged the whole URL because I wanted you to see how it just parses through things. And then we had this search params iterator. This search is exactly the same as what we get from the location.href, as you can see right here. But with the URL API, we iterate through each of those search parameters. And as I showed you, you can skip through using the URL API if all you want are those search parameters. Now, let's move to our second demo where I start to show you what you can do with these. Let me just rename these. So what we have is we have a container, and it's just going to be a 90 view height, 50 view width. So each of these are going to take up most of the screen, and we're going to scroll around the screen really smoothly. And down here we have 2 of those containers. We have one with the ID of container 1, and underneath of it we have a link to a hash of container 2. Interestingly, underneath of it, we have a container with the ID of container 2. And underneath of that, we have a link to go to container number 1. And finally, we have a btn that gives us a hint of the future. All right, we're not going to focus on that too much, but I do want to point out down here, we have the button, the 2 containers, and then the button will put 2 random colors in there. And so these are going to be the parameters that we're worried about here, color 1 and color 2. And that function that we have puts these into the website. So we take the new URL search params that we just talked about. We're going to get these 2 keys as we iterate through the search parameters, and we're going to take the container number 1 and we're going to change the background color to the color number 1. Container number 2's background color will be container number 2, and then we'll run this function. And then we're going to do some other stuff, which we'll talk about next time. So over here, we're going to have I like cheese, and we're going to throw in these parameters that we have. And then for the first one, I'm going to put just 00F, and that should be blue. And then the other one we'll do red, F00. And whenever we load this up, it's going to be like this. But interestingly, what if we were to put container 2 right there? It scrolls down for us. And if we hit this link, which we know responds to container number 1, ta-da! Now, really quickly, we're going to play with this button and see that everything on the page is changing. And most interestingly, we can iterate through them. And every single one will be exactly the same way that the user expects them to be as we go through them. We'll talk about how we did that in 12 hours.